I'll be ready in 3, 2, 1. So, ladies and gentlemen, what would it be if our resource basically ran out? It would likely to tearing out some countries, right? Or by the global, such as due to the expensive of the materials, right? So, we would prefer a world where critical resources are governed by the International Material Agency. But before going into my speech, I will I will divide it into two sections, which are backgrounds that include definitions, status quo, stakeholder, and the urgency. And the last one is that goal. And the second one is that I will bring into my argument. So it's the first one. We'll be moving on into the background, which are the definition of it. So International Material Agency refers to an agency that would act as a global organization with the goal to manage critical resources, including but not limited to oil, natural gas, or rare earth element. So we would prefer it would be governed or managed by this International Material Agency due to the reduce the risk of shortage and being wasteful to the world. We would like to the critical resource handled by this organization. So that is my definition, and we'll be moving on into my status quo right now. Is that many of the resource has been wasteful due to the fact of it being shortage due to the limited and the fact of global wars that caused this resource to be extinct due to wars that been including some of the national international trade routes, such as for the news is that the conflict between Iran and America that causing the blockage of the Hormuz Strait, causing the critical resource to be more expensive. So I will moving on into stakeholder, which are including three. That is, the first one is that International Material Agency. The first one. The second one is that by the government teams, and the third one is that society and global. Moving on into my agency. So basically, International Material Agency is the one who's played the big major role due to the fact that it's the one who's handled the critical resource and pushing this to become more safe and reduce the risk of shortage, right? So they would play the big major role for this stuff. So I will moving on into the government teams. They had to be wiseful to use the resource and allocate the resource due to the fact that if they didn't allocate it wisely, it would likely to cause the increasing of the material resource and making the stuff more expensive to the society and to their countries, such as that. And the last one is that society or by global is the one who's got the effect due to being allocated by the International Material Agency and the government team. So one they they the one who's got the effect due to being allocated by it. So I will moving on into my goal. We would like that our goal is to be simple and clear. We would like the resource to be handled by the International Material Agency due to the fact that it can reduce the minimum shortage by being handled by International Material Agency and the minimum their cost of the material, and also as a way to make environment safe. I will like to mention this into my argument. So I will moving on into my argument, but before that I would like to bring my argument into three sections, which are the first one is that environment, the second one is that by trade, and the third one or the last one is that by global. So I will moving on into my first argument, which including environment. So many of the fact that Earth wasn't healthy anymore, right? This likely due to the many of the mineral and resources taken by the human, especially the greedy ones. This would likely make them many of them exploiting it and sell a high price of those resources. This would likely to become that they became rich and making them had the whole property of the resource that lead by the greediness. But because they only care for the resource and the resource that been expensive, they would likely to not care about the environment or the environment of the resource of itself. That would likely to becoming the risk to the global. The environment became unhealthy and only fastening the global warming. Risk of it was that many of the metal resources became junk, right? Such as cars or many electronic stuff that has been made by the metal. It will likely to be trash or junk to the society and only dirty became earth to become more dirty. So and the fact is that ice melts down due to the fact that it causes that the resource that has been taken only causing the fastening the global resources, such as that this would likely to causing that the rising of the seawater and endangering the island or archipelago due to the lowlands making of those people who live in such as the island or archipelago to be reached by their safety concern. But if it was handled by the International Material Agency, it would likely to reduce environment degradation and would likely to make that those people that come from the island or archipelago didn't still had their home, such as that. So that is my first argument, and the second one I will talk about the trade. So some of the country which are Africa has been exploited by other developed countries. This causing that they has been took out their resource and making the product of it, such as many of Africa that has a resource of lithium and nickel, stuff like that, and it got taken by the well-developed country and to make a product, and it was likely to, and this developed country would likely to sell it to a high price. But the fact is that many of the resources came from them, and the reason that these products was basically a high price that making many people confused that why would they sell high price to a country that giving their resource, right? This would likely to be not unfair because it was the main resource of this product. So why would they be sell higher? So this was likely to causing the developing countries to be stuck due to the fact of their resource being handled by the well-developed country, and they didn't know how to handle it because uh, due to the trade stuff like that. This would likely to causing that yes, this developing countries still stuck due to the fact that of their resource being, and the fact is that not only that, this fact is that trade has been internationally interrupted, such as I mentioned before, in my status quo is that the conflict between Iran and America that bring uh, that brings the expensive materials to the global due to the Hormuz Strait has been blocked by the America, right? So it would likely that if it was handled by the International Material Agency, it would likely to reduce the risk of the shortage and to reduce the exploitation that has been used by some of the countries, right? So that is my second argument, and moving on into my last argument is that by the global. So for now, we know that the result of the material that are critical were being expensive due to wars, such as I mentioned before. This would likely to become the country of it has been decrease their economy due to the fact that it has been causing interrupted by the global, such as this would leading that many of them had to be the rising of the